Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. Suicides in Hong Kong jumped to a 15-year high, with people aged 50 or above making up 44% of the cases. Congestion at Cross-Harbour Tunnel to continue despite toll adjustments, says Transport Chief. The number of suicides in Hong Kong last year was the highest in 15 years. Most of those who took their own lives were aged 50 or older, suggesting that they did not want to be a burden on others. Macy Mock reports.
The Samaritan Befrienders found that 1,080 people took their own lives last year, the highest in 15 years, and 70 more than in 2021. Data from the coroner's court also showed that the number of people aged 60 or above who committed suicide last year was the highest in 49 years. Samaritan Befrienders Executive Director Clarence Zhang urged elderly people to seek help and abandon the notion that they are a burden to others. He encouraged their relatives to be patient when listening to the problems of the elderly. Nearly half, or 44%, of suicides last year involved old people. Those between 50 and 59 made up 19% of the cases. Zhang suspects that many older people were despondent because their chances of working dwindled during COVID and the economic downturn. Haymans Wong, chairman of Samaritan Befrienders, added emigration could be another factor, as people who remained behind received less support from relatives who left the city. Last year, 67 suicide cases were categorized as related to mental illness. Zhang said the government should not consider allowing mental illness patients with high suicidal tendencies to be discharged without any follow-up. He said it would be hard to monitor them when they leave hospital. Undersecretary for Health Libby Lee said it's hard to determine whether a person has high or low suicidal tendencies. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
The Undersecretary for Health, meanwhile, expects it will take up to 2 years to amend the law, under which more types of psychiatric patients can be prevented from a full discharge when their conditions are seen to be improving. Currently, the conditional discharge mechanism only applies to patients with violent tendencies who are under compulsory detention. One condition could be to order patients to stay in dormitories rather than go home. The government plans to include patients with violent tendencies who are admitted to hospital voluntarily in the mechanism to enhance public safety. Health Undersecretary Libby Lee defended the government's move, despite concerns that others might not seek help if psychiatric patients who go to hospital voluntarily might not be discharged if they seem to get better.
We believe that it won't actually deter that much of the mental patients seeking help because it's only covered those patients with severe violence behavior or tendency. Even so, if the mental patient with violence behavior or tendency, not everyone required conditional discharge. Basically, the medical team will do the assessment before they discharge and plan whether they need a discharge order or not.
Usage at the Western Harbour crossing is expected to improve next week when tolls are lowered after the government assumes ownership. But the transport chief admitted that the perennial congestion at the Cross-Harbour Tunnel will remain. 26 years after the Western Harbour crossing began operating, the tunnel remains underutilized due to its pricey tolls. That could finally change next week when the government assumes ownership of the tunnel upon the expiry of a 30-year franchise. From Wednesday, tolls for private cars will be slashed from $75 to $60. To further encourage motorists to switch to the Western crossing, tolls for the Cross-Harbour Tunnel and the Eastern Harbour crossing will be both raised to $30. The biggest beneficiaries could be taxi passengers, who pay $25 regardless of the tunnel they use. That said, the Transport Commissioner admitted she does not expect congestion at the Cross-Harbour Tunnel to disappear overnight. Cross-Harbour Tunnel will always be congested, Rosanna Law conceded. On a radio program, she said the real game changer is a variable toll scheme, which will charge motorists more during peak hours.
So we need some time to actually monitor their behavior and a change of traffic pattern before we can consider any further announcement of the dates of time varying toll.
Law also revealed that since an electronic toll system was put in place, the Cross-Harbour Tunnel was able to handle an extra 2,000 vehicles per day. Overseas, tens of millions of Americans have been hit by soaring temperatures and high humidity. The mercury rose above 38 degrees Celsius in the U.S. Midwest and the East Coast, including New York.
It's very hot every year, you know. Even this year, it started last week, it's coming very high. Yes. It's very dangerous for people. Some people die. This community is very dangerous. And not too many parks, not too many space for people come to relax.
Over 175 million Americans have been urged to take heed of heat advisories. Health officials warned that extreme heat could be fatal. Boston and Philadelphia declared a health emergency, and many cities opened cooling centers in libraries and community halls. Low-income neighborhoods face the biggest risks.
People of color tend to have higher rates of things like asthma and other chronic illnesses that predispose those residents to experiencing heat-related illnesses. So we see this play out in heat waves across the country for many years, where communities of color tend to have higher rates of heat-related illnesses, and we have observed directly that these neighborhoods tend to be warmer by several degrees on average during these heat waves.
There's been another setback to efforts to secure the release of whistleblower Julian Assange, with the United States insisting that he be tried on espionage charges. Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong said Assange's case has dragged on for too long. American and Australian foreign and defense ministers discussed the WikiLeaks founder during their meeting in Brisbane. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he understood Australian concerns about their compatriot, but accused Assange of leaking secret information. The whistleblower is confined in London's notorious Belmarsh prison, awaiting extradition to the U.S. His supporters say he is being persecuted for exposing U.S. military misdeeds in countries invaded by Washington. Fears are growing about the fate of 4 crew members of an Australian military helicopter that crashed off the coast of Queensland.
The helicopter was engaging in a 2-helicopter mission. There were 4 aircrew aboard. Because there was another helicopter present, a search and rescue was able to commence immediately. Defence exercises, which are so necessary for the readiness of our Defence Force, are serious. They carry risk.
Wreckage has been found close to the crash site. The accident happened while Australia and the United States were taking part in the largest military training exercise. The drills were suspended as 800 military and emergency services personnel searched for the missing crew members. At least 5 people have been injured in a Russian missile strike on the eastern Ukrainian city of Dnipro. The attack damaged a 12-story residential block and a building used by Ukraine's security services. Both structures were largely empty when they were hit around dinner time. Moscow, meanwhile, said its troops shot down 2 Ukrainian missiles. At least 15 people were injured, when debris from one rocket fell on the city of Taganrog, about 40 kilometers east of the border with Ukraine. The hottest July on record has prompted Japanese inventors to come out with ideas to stay cool. Inventors from Japan have showcased cool new gadgets to beat the heat. Macy Mock reports.
This model strutted down the red carpet to showcase a one-piece dress that comes with inbuilt fans. The puffy dress is only one of many cool inventions on show at the Extreme Heat Countermeasures exhibition in Tokyo. The products are aimed at solving heat-related problems. This baby carrier comes with integrated fans. A woman who tried it said usually both mother and child get sweaty, but she felt cooler after testing the new product. Like many other countries, Japan has been sweating under a heat wave that sent temperatures soaring. On at least 8 days this month, the mercury soared above 35 degrees Celsius, setting a record for July. Tomoki Tanaka, from the company that organized the event, said he never expected global warming to become so bad in such a short time. He said people visiting the fair are especially interested in personal goods, such as ventilated backpacks or cooling undershirts. Tanaka said demand for cooling technology is expected to increase, and he hopes to see more products that will prevent workers from getting heat stroke. Macy Mock, HKIBC.
Finally, the weather. Tomorrow will start off cloudy with showers, followed by sunny intervals. Temperatures will range between 27 and 32 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Saturday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Good evening.